There are nights when we can't quite tell whether we're awake or dreaming. All we know is, somewhere out there in the sound of rain, something gentle is still calling us home. Home to a part of ourselves we left behind long ago. If tonight you're lying there, unable to sleep, or simply longing for a little quiet, let this voice drift with you. This is Lucid Dream, Sleep and Science. Stories, where we touch both the science of sleep and the stories written for the grown-up soul. Letters, messages, memories, not written to teach us anything, but to remind us that we are still living, still learning, and still capable of beginning again, even on a night as silent as this. Tonight, we begin with a letter that was never sent. A letter written to the future self, the one who once believed they weren't good enough. This is the first letter. In the night, I finally wrote back to you, the one who once thought you had failed. You never truly lost. You were simply learning how to breathe underwater. I know you thought the world collapsed when your first dream shattered, when someone walked away, when you looked in the mirror and couldn't recognize yourself anymore. But listen, that pain was never a punishment. It was the beginning, becoming someone who knows how to love more deeply. You don't need to glue every broken piece back together. Some pieces were meant to fall away, and that's okay. You owe no one perfection. You could leave life right now, Marcus Aurelius once said. So let that determine what you do, say, and think. Or maybe he meant to remind us, don't wait until tomorrow to live a little lighter. Forgive yourself. Tonight is enough. Good night to the one who once believed they weren't enough. Now, you can rest easy, take a deep breath, and let's open the memories that have been silent for so long. Tonight, the sky feels like it's wrapped in a thin blanket. All the sounds out there, cars, people, the world, seem to fade away. All that's left is our breath. And the old, unspoken thoughts resting quietly inside us. Sometimes we think we've forgotten, but really we just haven't been calm enough to remember. Some wounds don't hurt anymore, yet they still make us sigh when we touch them. And some old dreams, even if they've drifted far away, still knock gently on our hearts on nights like this. I used to think that silence was how you heal, but silence only buried the words I never said deeper inside. Maybe that's why I started to write, not to begin a story, but to end something that stayed unnamed for too long. I write to the one I once was, to the version of me who didn't know how to love themselves yet, to the one who lay awake at night, staring at the ceiling, whispering, "Where did I go wrong?" I know, maybe you're not hearing these words with your ears, but with the heart that's gone quiet from remembering. If so, just sit still for a while. You don't need to answer. You don't need to explain. Let's just breathe together. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you want to be still, return to yourself." Perhaps writing these letters is my way of returning. I call them letters to the past self. Not because I want to relive the past, but because I want to thank it. Thank the moments that seemed to break me but were quietly building me back up all along. 3 letters, 3 small steps in that journey. The first, for forgiveness. The second, be for pain. And the last, for peace. They aren't teachings. They're simply moments where we sit down with ourselves and finally say the things we should have said long ago. I write, not for someone to read, but so I no longer have to carry it. Because sometimes the Greatest way to live is to set down what we thought we had to hold. If tonight you're listening to these words, perhaps you too are carrying something left unsaid. If so, let me speak first. To you, the one who once couldn't believe in yourself. Tonight I open a small box. Inside are letters I wrote when I was 17. Shaky, clumsy, uneven lines, as if every word was written with fear. Back then, I wrote to my future self. Maybe I believed that one day that person would be strong enough to answer me. And tonight, many years later, I'm finally calm enough to write back. The sound of paper rustling, the music softens. To you, the one who once thought you had failed. I know. There were mornings you woke up, looked into the mirror, and didn't recognize the person staring back. There were days you stayed silent, not because you had nothing to say, but because no one really wanted to listen. I remember you once asked, "Why is everything so hard?" Back then, I didn't know how to answer. And even now, I still don't. I just no longer find the question frightening, because sometimes we don't need to know why. We only need to know maybe we're still here. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You could leave life right now, so let that determine what you do, say, and think." The first time I read that, I felt sad. But later I understood that he wasn't speaking of death. He was speaking of life. He meant, don't wait until tomorrow to let yourself be at peace. To forgive yourself means not to forget what you did wrong, but to stop punishing yourself for it. I know you once wished to go back and do better, but even if you could, you'd make different mistakes anyway. Because this world doesn't need a perfect you. It just needs the you who's still learning to live. Rain falls steadier. The piano hums softly. Forgiveness isn't release. It's simply saying, I didn't know then, but I know now. It's the moment you take your own hand and whisper, it's okay. I understand you. Some cracks can't be mended, but it's through those cracks that light enters. Seneca once wrote, life isn't short. We just spend too much of it being afraid. I was afraid of not being enough, of being left behind, of not being loved. But tonight, I don't want to be afraid anymore. I just want to breathe mighty and tell myself, you don't have to become someone else to feel at peace. Good night to the one who once thought they weren't enough. I know you're tired. Now you can finally rest. Perhaps forgiveness isn't the end all, but the beginning. The moment we dare to look at what once made us tremble, when we stop being angry with ourselves, we start to realize there are doors in our mind we've never opened. They're still there, covered in dust. Behind them are memories we left or tried to forget. And tonight, as the rain keeps its gentle rhythm, I think, maybe it's time to return. In my mind, there's a room I locked a long time ago. The old wooden door creaks, and through its crack, light slips in just enough to show the dust. I don't want to enter, because inside are too many things I once feared to remember. The voices of those I loved, laughter that stopped halfway, words I never said, and silences I never should have kept. But tonight, I return, not to clean, not to fix, just to look, because maybe it's the avoiding that made the room so frightening. I push the door open. Dust fills the air. On the table, there's a small piece of paper. On it, just 3 words. I'm tired now. Just 3 words. But they pierce straight through me. Back then, I thought they came from weakness. Now I see them as the sigh of someone who carried too much for too long. I sit down on the old chair, and for the first time in years, I don't push the feeling away. I let it sit with me. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, If it can be endured, then endure it. Don't complain, but the more I live, the more I understand. What he meant by endure wasn't to suppress, it was to face it. Without fear, without running, without hiding. Because when we dare to look at our pain, it loses its power over us. I look around the room. Every object feels like a fragment of memory, a faded photograph, an unfinished book, a letter never sent. I touch them and realize none of them want to hurt me. They're just pieces of life that were once unloved. Maybe because I tried to forget them, they stayed here, waiting for me to return. I smile. I place the note back in its box and close the door. But this time, I don't lock it. The room is still there, but I'm no longer afraid to enter. Because now I understand, peace doesn't come from forgetting. It comes from being able to look back and smile at what once made us cry. Maybe when we're gentle enough to sit with our pain, we're also gentle enough to start loving ourselves again. And maybe that's the first real step toward peace. Peace isn't when the pain disappears. It's when we're strong enough to listen to it. I'm still sitting here unsure in the room I just reopened. No fast heartbeat, no trembling, just a strange stillness. What I used to fear wasn't the memory, it was facing myself. I look around, everything's the same, the dust, the objects, only I am different. I no longer see pain as an enemy, I see it as a teacher, quiet, stern, but honest. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." Before I heard that as a lesson. Now I feel it as a breath. Pain never came to punish us. It came to remind us that we're still alive. I once thought, if I were stronger, I wouldn't have fallen. But maybe it's the falling that taught me how to rise without losing kindness. I remember reading in a Buddhist text, when the mind stops struggling within suffering, suffering dissolves. I think maybe Stoicism and Buddhism meet there. Neither tells us to forget. They teach us to see clearly, so clearly that the pain fades like smoke in the wind. I place my hand on my chest, feeling each heartbeat steady and sure, and I realize each beat whispers, I'm still here. Pain hasn't vanished. It's only changed form, from a wound to a memory. And memories stop being heavy when we carry them with gratitude. I see my younger self, tired, lonely, but this time I don't see someone broken. I see someone trying. Someone who did the best they could with what they knew then. Maybe understanding that is forgiveness all over again. Not because we were wrong, but because we truly couldn't have done differently. I smile, and in that small smile there's something tiny, but enough to make me feel alive again. Hope. Not the hope that everything will be better, but the hope that, no matter what, I can still be at peace within myself. Marcus once said, if you're hurt, it's not the thing itself, it's how you choose to see it. So I choose to see my pain as a reminder that I once loved deeply, believed completely, and was brave enough to be broken, and in that, maybe I was never weak at all. Someone once said, when you're calm enough to sit with your pain, you're calm enough to see the sunrise. I close my eyes. Light begins to spill through the window. And I understand. The pain is no longer outside me. It has become light within me. The dawn doesn't come because the dark disappears, but because we've stopped running from it. Morning has come. The room that was once wrapped in darkness now glows with a gentle light. Everything is still there, The photograph, the note, the old chair. But something feels different. I sit quietly, hands resting on my knees, listening only to the rhythm of my heart. No more questions, no more resistance. Perhaps forgiveness begins the moment we no longer wish to win. When we stop trying to prove who was right and who was wrong, our hearts begin to feel as light as the wind. I remember a line from the Tao Te Ching, because I do not contend, no one can contend with me. When I was young, I thought that meant weakness. Now I understand it means letting go. Letting go isn't neglect. It's acceptance. The understanding that everything that happened was right for the moment it belonged to. Those who hurt us taught us the limits of our trust, and we, in our anger, taught them the silence of our hearts. None of us were perfect in the role of the good person, but in every wound we were given a chance to understand how humans learn to love. I wonder, how many times have we said, "I'm fine," when all our hearts wanted was a simple hug? How many times have we chosen strength only because we feared being left behind if we showed weakness? I think of these things and I smile. Because without those years, I would never have known how to treasure this peace I feel today. Marcus Aurelius once said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." And I finally understand. The things that once made us hesitate were the very things that led us deeper, further into ourselves. I close my eyes. Faces appear. The ones I loved, the ones I resented, and even myself. The one I couldn't forgive, I don't call their names. I just whisper silently, "Thank you for passing through my life." Whether gently or painfully, you all taught me how to love more truthfully. Forgiveness is not erasing. It's setting down what we no longer wish to carry. It feels like dropping a small stone into water. It sinks quickly, and then the surface is calm again. Perhaps deep down, we never truly forget anyone. We simply learn to remember without hurting. And that is peace. In that breath, I realize I've reached halfway on this journey. Forgiveness, that's for others, but true peace is when we learn to be grateful for what once caused us pain. We cannot change what has happened, but we can change how we carry it. And perhaps only when we set it down do our hands become light enough to hold something new. I see a letter in my dream, not from the past, but from the future. The handwriting is familiar, softer now, as if time itself had smoothed away the roughness of my soul. At the top, 4 small words. "Hello," from the future. I read each line and it feels like someone placing a gentle hand on my shoulder. "I know you're still afraid," the letter says, "still wondering if you're going the right way. But trust me, there is no wrong way. As long as you're still learning how to love," I smile. Maybe that's what every philosopher has been trying to say, some in their own way. Marcus teaches acceptance. Epictetus teaches response. Seneca teaches gratitude. And all of them, and me, are studying the same lesson. To live with a calm heart. I read on, you will never stop feeling sad. But one day, you'll know how to sit beside your sadness. The way you sit beside an old friend, and you'll see the things that once worried you will someday become what you're grateful for. And then I realized that the future isn't a place we go. It's the place our soul returns to once it has understood the present. Seneca once wrote, "No one is happy because they have much, but because they are content." Maybe true happiness begins when we stop comparing, when we no longer measure life by success, but by the moments we feel at peace. I think of all the years that have passed, the people who came and left, the dreams left unfinished, the thank yous I never said, and strangely I feel no regret, only a soft sense of gratitude, or like sunlight spilling gently through the windows of my mind. I write one final line, not as an answer, but as a promise. Thank you to the one who kept believing, even while afraid. Thank you to the one who walked through the night to see this light. I place the letter down and take a deep breath. The morning breeze slips through the window, carrying the scent of damp earth, the scent of a beginning, and I understand. I no longer need any more answers, because every question has dissolved into peace. Every pain has turned into light, and the future perhaps begins right here. In this very moment, everything that once hurt has turned to light. When we learn to be grateful simply for the breath we still have, when we stop resisting life, peace will quietly arrive. Part 4a, the closing letter. I fold the letter, not because there's nothing left to say, but because some things no longer need to be said. When the heart is at peace, silence becomes the most beautiful language. I look around the room. The same room of memories that once felt heavy with shadows now glows like an early autumn morning. Golden dust floats softly in the sunlight. The clock still ticks, steady and calm. Only this time, I no longer feel lonely among these things. I used to think peace meant having nothing left to lose. But now I understand, and peace is knowing that even when you lose, you are still whole. I think of Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Perhaps everything that once tore us apart was only making space for a new window to let the light in. I no longer wish to be better. I only wish to be real. Real with my feelings, real with my moments of weakness, real with my fear and fragility. Because only when we are real can we truly rest. I placed the stack of letters on the table. 3 letters, 3 seasons of life, 3 moments that were enough. Marcus taught me acceptance. Epictetus taught me how to face things. Seneca taught me gratitude. And life. Life taught me that all of it leads to one place, the place where we stop hating ourselves. Music fades softly, piano notes scattered, only the sound of wind and slow breathing remain. I think maybe forgiving yourself is the most beautiful way to say thank you to life. And gratitude is the gentlest way to keep living. Now, you can lie down. Place your hand on your chest. Feel your breath rising and falling. Slow, soft, like a quiet wave. Everything that has passed, let it stay where it is. Everything yet to come, let tomorrow carry it tonight. There is only you and this breath. You've traveled a long way to return home, home to yourself. No more trying, no more pretending to be strong. You never had to prove anything. You've always been enough. The piano becomes barely audible. Breathing and melody merge into one rhythm. Marcus once said, when you wish to be at peace, return to yourself. And tonight, you've done exactly that. You've come home, everything else can wait until morning. Good night. To the one who has learned to be gentle with themselves, peace is already here.